Hello, this is Stories from Earth. Welcome to my place. Today we're reading Chapter 14, My Stage Experience. I was now in the hands of a pretty little danseuse, who ran with me into the green room saying, "Oh, Mother, see this beautiful dolly that was thrown to me in a bouquet. Isn't it pretty?" "Yes," said her mother, "it is very pretty, but hadn't you better put it down and go and dance the Krashovienne, which you have got to dance?" "Certainly, mother, as soon as I have got my heels on." I found out soon afterwards that it was her dancing heels. My new mother's name was Caroline Eldgrave. We soon went home to a very nice house where we boarded. That night how thankful I was that I had got away from Madge and Martha, for now I felt I should enjoy myself very much, and besides that I should see behind the scenes, and be in the dressing room, which I had often wished for. The next day my mother took me to the rehearsal, and when she began to dance, she put me beside one of the wings so that I might learn to dance. We lived out in the country, about 10 miles south of my late mother's house, in a very neat cottage. My new mother taught me a great many fancy dances, among which were la cachuca, la krashovienne, la smolenska, Highland fling, and a great many hornpipes, besides quadrilles, polkas, waltzes, and the mazurka, redowa, and schottische. My mother was to dance and act in a new pantomime, which was called The Elements and Fairies, and which she was determined to have me act in. So she asked the manager if he could not have me do something in it. The manager consented, and when my mother told me, oh, how happy I felt! My mother took me to the rehearsal every day with her, and made me a dress. It was of white gauze over white satin, with gold spangles, and a gold paper crown on my head. Of course I had little silver shoes and fleshings. I was to represent the fairies' guard in the clouds, and to appear in a sun. I at first felt rather giddy when I mounted the pedal behind the sun, but I soon got accustomed to it. I appeared to a lover in a dream. I did not feel degraded, and I hope my readers will not think less of me. Chapter 15, The Pantomime. The evening arrived. We drove into town rather earlier than usual. My mother let me peep through a little slit in the curtain to see if the house was full. The play commenced and was as follows. First there came a most beautiful fairy and said, "Elements, I beg your aid, come forward, and not be afraid." Immediately a waterfall that was pouring over some rocks divided, and a most beautiful fairy came out and said, "Queen, I come at thy command. What wouldst thou have?" "Be patient, spirit." Then the fairy of air appeared and said, "Queen, what wouldst thou?" "Be patient." Then the fairy of earth came right out of the floor and said, "O Queen, I come at thy call." "Be patient." Then the spirit of fire came forth out of a rock with a loud hissing noise and said, "What would ye have me do? I'll burn down houses and land, nor deal with a partial hand." "Stop," said the queen, "none of this. Instead of hurting, I want you all to befriend a poor young man who goes to get the talismanic wand, which will put him in possession of the most beautiful princess in the world. Therefore I request that you shall aid him." Then they all answered, "Whatever is thy will, we do." The next scene was a wood, where this young man passes through and is attacked by demons, snakes, bears, and all sorts of bad things. At length he goes to sleep, and I appear to him in a sun, and hold a scroll which says on it, "Persevere, the fairies thy guardians are ever near." Then the scene changes to a demon's place of resort. Here is all fire and demons with square faces, and some with humpbacks and goggle eyes, claws, wings, and tails. The king then said, "Ye devils of lower regions, come forward." and instantly a whole troop of devils of all shapes and sizes came forward. He then told them that he wanted them to exert themselves and try to keep that young man from getting the wand so that he could not get the princess. Then one of the devils said that he would go and misguide him, and so he dressed up as a handsome young man and went and met this man that was going to get the wand and said, "Friend, where goest thou?" "I go to seek the wand." "You do? Why, then you have got the wrong path." "I have? Why, 'twas only a minute ago that an old man said that I had the right path if I went to seek the wand." "Do not believe him. He lies. That is the way which lies open before. Take that path there. Adieu." The young man that was to seek the wand said, "How lucky that I met that man, for if I had not, I should have gone the wrong way and missed the princess forever." Then there was a clashing sound, and I appeared in the sun and held another scroll which said, "That young man is a demon disguised, and has led you into the wrong path. Take this ball and throw it before you, and wherever it rolls you follow." I threw him down a ball. He then followed the ball and disappeared. The next scene was where the fairies were, and they sung splendidly. Presently the queen came through the air riding in a chariot drawn by peacocks. She said, "Listen, fairies." Then the fairies said, "We will." The queen said, "The young man will soon reach the palace where the wand is kept. I wish you to help him across the golden lake. Now disperse." Then all the fairies disappeared. The next scene was where the demons were again, and the demons screamed horribly, and the king came through the air in a coach drawn by serpents and said, "Hark, demons!" And the demons said, "We will." The king said, "The young man who will soon be at the palace in spite of our endeavors is to cross the golden lake, and I wish you to do all in your power to prevent him from getting the wand. Now go." And all the devils went. The next scene was the palace where the wand was kept, and the young man got the wand in spite of all the devils and bats, owls, serpents, dragons, and ghosts. As soon as he had got the wand in his hands, the devils all uttered a scream and went through the floor, and a chariot came through the air with the princess, who was my mother, and the fairy queen. The scene changed to a most beautiful garden, with the palace of the sun at the back, and the sun over it, and I in it. All the performers were on the stage at once and danced a fancy dance. This ended the pantomime, or rather spectacle, for nearly all spoke. After the performance, a little girl came in the dressing room, and her father and mother. My mother saw that she cast longing eyes at me, and so she stepped up and said, "Will you be so kind as to accept this doll?" The little girl said she would. Chapter 16. My Next Mother. We then drove home. My mother's name was Garofalina Chopard. They were a very vulgar, purse-proud, stuck-up people. My little mother was all the time talking to me about money and making a show. We went to a party one night. My mother's mother, my grandmother, did not know how to dress in good taste at all. She was dressed in a black and yellow changeable silk, and my mother was dressed in a green and orange, with a wreath of red roses in her hair. My grandmother tried to talk French, but she mispronounced every word. That evening, when anyone was introduced, she would ask them if they could "Parlez-vous français?" And at supper she said that she would take chocolat. It was such a soul-stirring beverage. She took ice cream and said that she always took ice cream because she thought it cooled her heterogeneous and amalgamated system. Besides, it was the merry month of Juin. At home, when we had company, she always talked so. We had some pretty high folks, for she had worked her way into the upper 10. One evening, Sir Thomas Fitzpatrick came to see her. At tea she said, "Dear sir, Let me persuade you to take one airy mouthful of framboises, or else do condescend to taste some fromage. It is quite new, my lord, and I hope it will please your diddleditory taste." After tea she said, "Oh, my lord, don't you perfectly adore Byron and Shakespeare? I think that one is so cherubical and the other so seraphical. Don't you recollect that passage from Macbeth in Act Second and Scene Second? Hark! Who lies i' the second chamber? And in Hamlet's Soliloquy in Scene Fifth, Act First, alas, poor ghost! My little mother used to prink before the glass, and hold me up to see how handsome I was, till I was very tired of looking at myself. My mother never let me do any sewing for fear I should spoil my fingers, and thus I passed a very idle life. I could not read much, as my mother was afraid that I would hurt my eyes. One day my mother said that her grandmother was coming to live with us, and also her aunt, who was not married. She said that she hated old maids, though they had got to come, but she would not speak to them. I was very sorry indeed to hear this.